Welcome to the Health and Wellness Cooking Demonstration. I'm Chef Michelle Gaw, and I'm a part of the Hospitality Culinary Arts program. Today I'm going to be focusing on gluten-free. And first thing I want to say is gluten-free is not a fad diet. This is truly for those people who have a wheat allergy. It's not because you miss out on a lot of nutrients when you go gluten-free and fiber. So we want to make sure that you're eating properly if you are doing gluten-free. Our first recipe today is an herbed quinoa salad, and we're going to start with some wonderful chicken stock. Now, you may not have chicken stock in your refrigerator or freezer at home, and please don't buy the little bouillon cubes. You can get wonderful chicken base out there that is gluten-free also. And see how beautiful the color is? So we're going to pour that in there, and it's got lots of flavor, and that's part of what we want to impart on the quinoa. Now, quinoa is a grain from the Andes. Today I chose a rainbow. This is available at most of the grocery stores today, so you want to pay attention to that. There are aisles of gluten-free products in the grocery store. So we're going to start with this, and we have 2 3/4 cup chicken stock, and I'm going to just turn that on, if I could do it right. There we go. And we're going to add about 1.5 cups or so of the quinoa to that. And look how pretty it is, variegated colors. And you notice that I'm measuring exactly perfect here. That's real important. Okay, I'm being a little funny there. The other thing that we're going to add to this is lemon juice. And you want to have fresh lemons. Keep them around in the refrigerator. We're going to zest this for part of our dressing, and then we'll juice them also. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Here's about 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and we'll put that in there. So now we're ready with our quinoa, and I'm just going to give it a stir here. And this will take about 12 to 15 minutes. So you keep the time for me there, okay? And we'll cover it with a lid, bring it to a boil quicker, then we'll reduce it to a simmer, okay? Now we're going to make our dressing, and our dressing has lots of herbs and flavors to it. This would also be, after your dressing, you could add leftover vegetables to your quinoa salad. That'd be perfect. So we're going to start here. I have basil, I have parsley, and tucked underneath here, I have some fresh thyme. Okay, in the summer, I love to grow these outside. They make perfect dressing. So we have some extra virgin olive oil. Difference between extra virgin and blended olive oils and that sort of thing. Extra virgin you want to use when you're going to taste it in the finishing application. So I don't use extra virgin olive oil to saute with, but it's perfect for a salad dressing. So here's our olive oil. And we're going to do some zest. Now this is what they call a microplane, perfect for getting just the yellow off of your lemon. Almost called it an orange. If you only take the yellow off, you leave the white pith below, which is very bitter, and we don't want to add that to our salad. So you'll see that, and you can kind of see under here just a little bit of lemon zest. And we're going to add that. It's very fine, and that adds tons of flavor. If I'm making like blueberry syrup for breakfast, quite often I'll zest a lemon in there too. Okay? Just like that. And that's perfect. Now we can use this to juice. One of the things you want to do, the lemon is room temperature. If it's cold, you're not going to get as much juice out of it, so make sure it's room temperature. The other thing you can do is press on it. That helps to release the juice in there. Okay, we're going to cut that in half. If you don't have a juicer like this, you can squeeze it in your hand, that's fine, but this is one of those handy dandy gadgets that I love to have. And look how beautifully it takes all that juice out of there. And a lemon will give you 1 lemon will give you close to 1/4 cup. So we're going to do 1 1/2 just to make sure we've got enough tartness in our salad. And you'll feel the difference in your lemon here as you're pressing. It becomes soft, releasing all that juice. Okay, last lemon in our dressing. Okay, we're all good there. Now, I already chopped my parsley up. Healthy bunch of parsley in there. Doesn't have to be chopped too fine, just fine enough to mix in with the quinoa. Now we're going to pick out some basil here. We don't want the great big huge thick stems like this. You could reserve these and cook them with a little oil if you wanted some basil flavored oil. But if you do that, put it in your refrigerator. You can't hold it at room temperature. So I'm just moving most of the leaves off and taking out the large stems. And we could stack these real pretty if we wanted to, but it's not going to matter for what we're doing. I just kind of bundle them, roll them a little bit here, and then we're going to take our knife and just do what we call a chiffonade cut. Very thin strips. Okay. And this is also going to give texture to what we're doing. So this is going to be our dressing for the quinoa. I'm going to check on that in just a second here. So we've got our basil and our parsley. We've got the lemon and the extra virgin olive oil, a little black pepper, and just a little bit of salt. And then we'll check our seasoning when we get to the end. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. We'll look into our pot here. Grab my towel. And we're boiling, so I'm going to reduce the heat to a simmer. And just take a peek. I don't care about those little bit of herbs in there. And we'll see our quinoa will kind of swell once it's cooked. So we'll let that go for about another 10 minutes. Okay, so I've got all the components there for our salad. We're going to move on to our focaccia. And our focaccia is probably one of the hardest things to do because we're gluten-free. And what holds bread together but that gluten? So we're going to use a number of different flours, and I'm going to kind of step over here. First of all, let me get my recipe so I don't forget any ingredients for you. The recipe calls for a 4-bean flour. I have a 2-bean flour. One of the things that's most important when we're mixing this up is to have a variety of flours in here so that we get different nutrients in it and it holds together better. So I have a garbanzo and fava. I have flaxseed meal right here. And I have xanthan gum. Now, what's the xanthan gum for? That replaces some of that gluten that's in there. It helps us to bind and have those strands in there. The other ingredient that's in there is gelatin. That's the other thing that helps us to bind together. And then we have yeast, eggs, a little vinegar, some dry milk, little sugar, and our herbs. Move my recipe here. So this is our flours all together. In our mixing bowl here, we're going to do our liquids, the vinegar. We're going to put our powdered milk in there. We're going to put an egg. All right, should have taken that out. Okay. 2 eggs in there. And we have warm water. Now you want to put in, the recipe calls for 1.25 cups of warm water. We're going to put most of that, about 1 cup of water in. Okay? And then if this were on the mixer, it would be mixing around right now. And I'm just pretending here. We'll get it all together. Okay, then when we go to the mixer, we're going to put our flour in. okay? And we'll do that in the back. We'll mix our flour in and we'll get our batter. So I'm just going to set this to the back. You can pretend I did all that. And then when that dough comes out, it's going to be kind of like cake batter. And to that cake batter, you'll add your herbs, some of the herbs. I like to reserve some. And then I do olive oil on my pan. So I put the olive oil down, spread my dough out, okay? Maybe a little bit of the herbs in there. Put a little olive oil on top, and then the herbs on top again. I bake it for about 7 minutes. And then I use my lovely little moly grater with cheese and grate the cheese on it and put it back in the oven. So that's kind of where our focaccia goes. The next one is going to be kind of fun that we're going to do is gnocchi. If you've never made gnocchi before, it's one of the most tender products that you can have, and especially without the wheat flour, it's even more tender. So what I've done is I've baked potatoes, and you want them to still be warm. And we're just going to cut the potatoes in half. And we're going to scoop out the meat of the potato, and we're going to put it into our ricer. And I'm actually going to use this tray here to mix our dough on. Kind of be a little bit neat there. So here's our ricer. You could use a food mill if you have a food mill at home, that's fine. This is actually how I make my mashed potatoes too, is using the ricer. So we're just going to scoop out the potatoes. If you want to save the skins, you can do that. And then we're going to run them through the ricer, and we'll have nice strands of potatoes. Then we'll mix our eggs and other ingredients in here. And when I'm all done with my dough, I like to refrigerate it. Sorry, I'm making quite a bit of noise there. I like to refrigerate it and let it set, preferably overnight, but at least a couple hours before we roll it out. So you'll see I have some finished dough in there. Okay, almost there. Now the gnocchi use a blend of flours once again. And once we get this part done, we're going to add our eggs to it, and then we'll start adding the flour. So, and we just simply push it through. There we go, I got crooked. Of course, things never go the way you want them to. And you see how we're getting strands out there? I'm actually going to have to push it through. I did something wrong there. And we'll push it through. See if I can get that to go back on there. There we go. Okay. And that's what we want to do. That's how we rice our potatoes. Okay. And I'm going to move this little part aside here. Pretend that riced up for me. And then we're going to add 1 egg. You could beat this up ahead of time. 1 egg and 1 yolk. I just mix it right in there. Oops. Well, 2 eggs instead of an egg and an egg yolk. And then we're going to mix this all together. Now we should have just a little bit more potato here. But we want this to be nice and moist because we're going to add our flour blend to it. Now these I got at the regular grocery store. We have millet flour. We have white rice flour. We also have potato starch in there. So that's my blend of flours right here. And this is about 1 1/3 cups. I'm going to add just a little bit to kind of blend in that egg. And I really like to use my hand in here. I'm going to try to wait till I get that egg incorporated just for the feel of it. It's kind of like making bread. You have a certain feel about the dough. Okay, so we'll go there. And I'm going to be a little messy here, but work my dough. And this is very, very soft. And if you could feel it, it's really tender. And that's exactly what we want. Nice, tender gnocchi. And you'll see that this will all come together. Okay, and look how beautiful that is. And then we just keep working it with our hands. If it's a little dry, you could add some water to that. But you see just the moisture from our hands, how it's bringing that all together quite beautifully. And then we would add to this our herbs, which I have right here. Knead those in, a little bit of salt, maybe a little pepper, okay? And that's kind of how that dough would look. We'll save a little bit of that. We'll use it when we finish up our gnocchi. And a pinch of salt. Now I'm going to move this aside here, kind of clean up my mess a little bit. And I'm going to start our pot of water on the back boiling. And we're going to add a little bit of salt to that. And I'm going to take a second and wash my hands. And I'm just going to move this aside. I know that doesn't look very pretty. And in here, voila, I have my finished dough. Now this is perfect to roll out on a granite counter like this. I'm just going to check over here, see how our quinoa is doing. Can you see inside there? It's almost absorbed all the liquid and it started to swell. Look how beautiful the colors are. Looks so healthy and almost looks nutty. Okay, so that's just got a couple more minutes and we'll be able to do that. Our water's back there. And once I have my gnocchi, you want to take your dough here, divide it up into small bits. If you make the full recipe, you divide it into about 8. Take a little of your extra flour blend, put it on the counter, and you're going to roll with your fingertips, okay? Not your whole hand, just your fingertips, and you gently roll it out. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to cut it. You can use a bench scraper, you could use a knife, just into pieces like this. And I wish you could feel it because it's just so tender, so tender. Now I have a little gnocchi paddle. You could use a fork, either one is okay. And we just kind of run it down here so that it gets ridges. Why do we want the ridges? So that it would absorb the sauce and it would stick all to our gnocchi. So just a little ridges like that. They're very tender. And we're going to drop them into our boiling water. And they'll come up to the top when they're done. Just takes about 2 or 3 minutes. It's really pretty quick. Now, if you want to do this ahead of time, you could get that part all done, have your gnocchi made, and then you could even freeze them if you'd like to. Okay, so there we go, some gnocchi. And as soon as our water's boiling back there, we'll do that. Let's see how our quinoa is here. And our quinoa is looking beautiful. And I'm actually going to leave the lid off for a few minutes and let that start to dry up, okay? And then we'll add our vinaigrette to that. And let's see, what else can I tell you about gluten-free? Adding flavor to things is really important so that you're not missing out. Make sure you read labels when you're shopping for gluten-free. Some of the things that you may not even think about, like sour cream, may have modified food starch. So you want to watch for all of those ingredients when you're shopping. You want to make sure that you don't cross-contaminate. If some of your family isn't gluten-free, you want to make sure that oil that you use to fry potatoes or anything has never had any wheat products in it. I've been involved with the Celiac Foundation and have learned a lot about what just a small amount of wheat, how that can really affect someone. And once you understand that, you be very, very cautious about it. Even like if you're cooking on a grill, you want to make sure that nothing that come in contact with wheat is put on that part. Okay, so here, I'm going to turn our heat off here. And what I like to do is I like to put my dressing into the quinoa while it's still warm, because then it just sucks up all those flavors and tastes really, really good. So here we have our dressing, and I'm just going to mix it right in the pot. Now this is something that you could serve warm, you know, room temperature, or you could refrigerate it. That's okay too. And you can't smell it, but there's this wonderful citrus aroma from the lemon. Okay, and I'm going to steal somebody's fork over here. My apologies. And just taste. That's one of the things that you want to make sure you do as you're cooking is taste the product. The lemon just permeates it. It's wonderful. So citrusy. So I'm going to bring my little dishes over here. And I'm actually going to plate up my quinoa salad right now. See those wonderful strands of basil in there? Be wonderful with a piece of grilled chicken, even maybe some pork, barbecued pork chop with it. There we go, that looks wonderful. All right, and I'm going to move our quinoa salad aside. Because I'm short, I'm going to bring the pot forward so I can see inside of it. And we're starting to boil. We already put our salt in. And then you just want to gently drop your gnocchi in there. You could have them on a plate and drop them in. And it kind of looks like, oh, they're stuck down there, but they're going to come right up, float up to the top, and we'll pull them out. Now I'm going to flip my board over here real quickly. And I'm going to grab out of the oven our finished focaccia. So there's our focaccia. Doesn't that look wonderful? All those wonderful herbs, cheese on there. And remember, it's gluten-free. And I like to use a serrated knife. When I want to cut this, any bread, serrated knives work best. They don't squish down your bread. And it has a nice crunch to it. It's very tender because remember it's missing the gluten in there. Okay, and we'll put these on our plates. So we'll have a wonderful piece of focaccia. And we're going to cook up our, oh, look at here. I'm going to steal this spoon. you can see floating to the top. Can you see that in there? Floating to the top are our gnocchi. And I'm going to lift them out. Look how beautiful. And I'm just going to combine them with the ones that I made earlier today. And we're going to toss those with a little olive oil and a little fresh herbs. And we'll be good to go. And so the food tells you when it's ready. That's really important. Okay? And that recipe is going to make, I've got about half of my dough left, so this is about half of it. So it's going to make a lot of gnocchi. Okay, we'll move that to the back. And we'll just take a little skillet here. Let that warm up. I'll finish my focaccia over here. And then we'll cook up our gnocchi and serve up our focaccia and gnocchi along with our quinoa salad. Now I have olive oil. This is not extra virgin. This is what I call a blended olive oil, perfect for cooking in. So we're going to put a little in the skillet and allow that to warm up. And we'll find some of our herbs here. Here we got some herbs that we can add to it. And I have a little container of garlic. And this is Pecorino Romano cheese. Pecorino, wonderful, good quality cheese. Want to make sure when you're using something like this to finish that it's got a lot of flavor to it and it's a good quality cheese. So that's what we're going to do right here. We have a little mouli grater. We just put that in there and we'll be ready to go here in a second. So our oil is heating up. I'm going to add just a touch of the garlic to the oil. Want to make sure we don't burn the garlic. If we burn the garlic, what's going to happen? It's going to taste bitter, and we don't want that to happen. Okay. There we go. Now I can smell the garlic. And then we'll slide some of our gnocchi in here. And we kind of want them to brown a little bit. Almost have a crispiness to them. That's what we're doing there. Okay. And I'm going to add a little herbs to that. Just a touch of salt, just a pinch. And then after we put it on the plate, we'll add a little of the cheese to the top. And hopefully I have some tasters that are going to join me for this. Do you smell the herbs? No, you can't, but they smell wonderful. That rosemary and thyme, they're wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go over here, put a little bit on the plates, and see if I can get my tasters to join me. And I'll even find a fork for whoever I stole from.
We got one here.
Ah, the magic of the team. Now, are any of you gluten-free? No. So this is going to be a true test that sometimes in the restaurant when we do gluten-free, people will say to me, wow, that was really good. I wouldn't have even known that it was gluten-free. And our cheese. Cheese makes everything better.
Looks really good, Michelle.
Okay, so here we have our quinoa salad. Big portion for you.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. And then the focaccia and the gnocchi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now I want to see what you think.
All right. Is this when we introduce ourselves?
The truth is in the tasting there.
Very good.
That's very good.
It is very good.
Now Leo, who's in the middle, is picky, and he's going back for seconds. That's a good sign.
This is delicious.
Delicious, thank you.
And the texture is just right. Soft.
Tender, very good.
Very tender.
Very good.
Yummy.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.